What it is, what it do. It's a perfect being back again with another video. On this one, we got alcohol versus weed, which is actually worse for you. Now we know, a lot of us know out there, we love one of these or both of these a whole lot. So we finna see which one is actually worse. So let's go to school right quick.
November
Hit that
4th,
like button.
2021, Dublin, Ireland. A husband and wife, usually the poster couple for hashtag relationship goals, are having a domestic spat. The argument escalates and it ends with the husband, wait for it, removing his wife's head with a knife. Well, that's one way to cut the conversation short. Or how about this gem? February 23rd, 2002, somewhere in the good old US of A, a young woman is feeling festive. She calls up her crew for a night out. But when she wakes up in a police cell, she is informed she turned her besties into ghosts. One of these people was stoned and the other was drunk. Stories we'll discuss later in this episode of The Infographic Show. Alcohol versus weed. Which is worse for you? Now, before you grab your pitchforks, yeah, those examples.
Hey, I'm gonna say well, I'm gonna say it's worse for you. I'm gonna say the alcohol, because the alcohol just turn you into a whole nother person. Like just like the beginning of the video said, man chopped his wife head off, and the woman turned her friend into ghost. That's some crazy shit. But when you get off that liquor, man, you just gonna either pass out or act out. One of them.
Were a bit
if you drink too
extreme. But hey, we didn't have to dig too hard to find stories like these. You know, booze and weed have their perks, but they also come with some not so fun side effects. Let's dive into that. First, let's talk about general wear and tear, because nothing says good times like long-term damage, right? When you drink alcohol, it's like sending an eviction notice to your organs. That fine little bottle of Thunderbird wine you proudly cracked open, sure, it makes you feel relaxed, even confident enough to hit on your boss. But that ethanol is toxic and your body is the one footing the bill. It messes with your brain, liver, heart, esophagus, stomach, bank account, and sometimes even your reputation. In 2019, according to the WHO, alcohol killed about 2.6 million people. That's 7% of all male deaths and 2% of all female deaths, because apparently men love to party hard and die trying. Alcohol is like a VIP pass to an early grave for
men love to party hard and die trying now. That's for real right there, boy. When the niggas get off that liquor, niggas start acting bad, boy. Like, man, I'm talking about especially if you a person that like you got that certain liquor that you just know you don't need to be drinking, you still drink it, like
the young crowd too. It accounts for 13% of all deaths for people aged 20 to 39. Speaking of dependence, around 400 million people worldwide are addicted to alcohol, with 209 million needing their daily fix just to avoid shaking like a malfunctioning washing machine. You might have heard about withdrawal symptoms called DTs or delirium tremens. Sounds fancy, right? Well, they're about as fun as they sound. When you drink daily, your brain stops producing GABA, the chill pill for your nervous system, because booze is handling the calm down duties for you. Then you stop drinking and your brain is like, sorry, I'm on GABA vacation, leaving your nervous system to go full panic mode. Spoiler alert, that's not a fun kind of excitement. Without treatment, 37% of people with DTs will clock out permanently, and even with treatment, 5 to 15% still won't make it. Symptoms start 24 to 72 hours after your last drink and can turn your life into a 7-day horror film. Yep, booze withdrawal is a total nightmare. We bring this up because alcohol dependency, it's everywhere. According to the 2023 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, around 17 million American men aged 12 and up had alcohol use disorder in the past year. And women, they clocked in at 12 million. Oh, and 755,000 of those folks were 12 to 17 years old. No wonder health pros are sounding the alarm over rising liver disease in Americans in their 20s and 30s. Speaking of the liver, if yours literally goes hard mode, known in the medical community as developing cirrhosis, bouncing back is almost always a no-go. Pre-cirrhosis liver scarring, known as fibrosis, is potentially reversible, but once you hit cirrhosis, game over.
Hold on. Shit, there's a lot of information that I don't goddamn. Damn, he taking us to school. Like, oh, I'm learning so much shit right now. I can't keep up. Just try to keep up though.
For man, what used to be a 50s to 60s hardcore drinker problem is now showing up in 25 to 34-year-olds, and according to a 2018 study, this group is leading the way in cirrhosis cases, with about 50% of all U.S. cirrhosis deaths due to heavy drinking. And if that wasn't enough, around 4% of cancers that killed people worldwide in 2019 were linked to alcohol. So if you're wondering, is alcohol bad for your body? Well, no kidding. Fire is hot too. But wait, destroying your organs isn't the only danger booze brings. We'll get to that soon, but first let's shift gears and talk weed. According to a 2020 study with 23,000 participants, about 47% of daily weed smokers had withdrawal symptoms when they quit. With roughly 220 million weed users worldwide and 62 million in the US alone, some of you watching this probably know what I'm talking about. It's a touchy subject because governments used to do a lot of scaremongering when it came to weed, but something called cannabis use disorder actually is real, and about 10% of daily smokers will develop it. That's right, weed addiction is a thing. But when it comes to quitting weed, it's a walk in the park compared to alcohol. Sure, you might be a little cranky for a few days, struggle to sleep, sweat buckets, and feel like you got a case of the flu, but at least you won't be hallucinating giant cartoon monsters chilling at the foot of your bed. Weed psychosis, different story, but it's not withdrawal related, so we'll get to that later. So what happens to your body when you're on the weed?
What the hell is weed psychosis, man? Hey, that's what I be saying, but it's so much shit out here, like, to know about that I don't know about, that I'm sure a lot of us don't know about, but it's a lot of us do know. But weed psychosis, it's my first time. It ain't gonna.
Drain. When you light up, THC, the magic ingredient, hits your lungs, bloodstream, and finally your brain. Where it works, it's stoner sorcery. If you eat it, same deal, just slower, but the trip lasts longer. To keep it really simple, THC messes with your endocannabinoid system, which affects your mood, stress, pain levels, and even your metabolism. Hence why a weed smoker's natural habitat is often the glow of a fridge at 2 a.m. None of this is too scary on its own. Sure, if you overdo it, you might get a case of acute cannabis toxicity, which sounds terrifying, but it just means you're too high to function. Lethal weed overdoses simply are not a thing. Or if they appear to happen, it's because they also involved other kinds of drugs. Unlike alcohol, where you can drink yourself to an early grave, you can't smoke yourself to death or OD on too many cannabis-infused cookies. But if you are a regular smoker, your lungs won't be sending you any thank you notes. The jury is still out on whether weed without tobacco causes cancer, but scientists agree on one thing: your lungs will get irritated. It might even lead to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. But again, the data is about as clear as a foggy morning. Now for that heart of yours. Smoking weed cranks up your heart rate by 20 to 50 beats per minute. That little cardio session lasts up to 3 hours, putting some strain on your ticker. If you already have heart issues, like half of all American adults, you might want to check in with your doc before lighting up, since studies show regular weed use can boost your risk for heart attacks and strokes. But here's the kicker. Some people puff away and think they're having a heart attack, when in actuality there is nothing wrong with them physically. They just booked themselves a VIP ticket to Panic Town. Anxiety from weed is real. About 10 to 20% of users experience it, especially when they go a little too hard. But hey, in those same studies, 70% said weed actually helps with their anxiety. Now, we're not here to trash weed. It's got some legit perks, which is why we've got medical marijuana. Some pros include potentially lowered blood pressure, reducing inflammation, and, as we mentioned, calming down anxiety in many people. There's even some buzz, pun intended, that cannabidiol might help fight certain cancers. Emphasis on the might, though. We're not curing cancer.
That's what I'm saying. I thought weed was a good thing, but except the ones that sprayed over. Like, I thought weed was used as a medicine, like to help you see better, help your body out and all this shit. But I guess, you know what I'm saying, when they get tampered with and sprayed over and shit like that, you know, it mess with you, man. Because he talking about the weed speed up your heart rate. I thought the weed slow you down. At least the weed I know about. I don't know. It's crazy.
Cancer with edibles just yet. So yeah, weed is a mixed bag. Some good, some bad, and some ugly, which we'll get into soon. As for alcohol, that's almost all bad news for your body. And that's why you won't find medical martinis or prescription Patron anytime soon. In fact, some people use weed to help them stop drinking or kick other harder drugs. If you're hooked on alcohol, heroin, or benzos, weed might actually help you kick the habit and stay clean. But if you're carrying around a future bundle of joy, aka a baby, put the joint down. There's no safe level of cannabis use during pregnancy or breastfeeding. Believe it or not though, an estimated 4 to 10% of pregnant women still light up. But it turns out that little bun in the oven isn't so keen on THC. This isn't about tripping fetuses, it's more about future neurological issues. So when Junior hits the real world, they might struggle with speech, cognition, and let's be honest, could totally tank those spelling bees. So next time you bomb a math test, just blame your weed-smoking mom. It's a solid excuse for a lifetime of, oops, I failed again. The research isn't crystal clear, but there's enough evidence for the American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists to say, hey, maybe don't toke up when you're pregnant. Sure, weed can help with pregnancy pain, nausea, and anxiety, but still probably not worth the risk. Oh, and they also said lay off the booze during pregnancy. But in a 2022 study, around 30% of women admitted to sipping while expecting, and nearly 8% confessed to binge drinking because nothing says prenatal care like a six-pack. One New York Times journalist pointed out that scolding pregnant women for this might seem a tad patriarchal, but hey, fetal alcohol syndrome, FAS, is no joke. Being different is cool and all, but when that comes with impulse control issues, future seizures or psychosis, and the kid can't even spell abnormality, maybe it's time to skip that margarita. And FAS isn't just a relic of the past. In a 2018 study, researchers found that about 1 in 20 American kids still show signs of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. You can almost hear them trying to spell ABNORN.
Come on,
Dang
man.
it. But let's not forget the stupid risky stuff people do when they're hammered. Happy drunks, sad drunks, angry drunks. Alcohol really brings out all the flavors of stupidity. Drinking basically sends your prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive suite, on a coffee break, which explains why Saturday night in basically any city looks like an audition for World's Dumbest Criminals. And considering that the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until the age of 25, young people plus booze is like mixing fireworks and a lighter. Remember the girl who killed her 3 friends after a night of drinking? She was only 20, celebrating a new job at a hair salon in California. After downing a few Long Island iced teas at a TGI Fridays, she packed her friends into her car and drove off. The next morning, she woke up with zero memory of the crash or the drinks, but 3 of her friends were dead. The news is full of stories just like this. In 2024, a drunk teen in Fort Worth wiped out 5 people, including 2 kids after crashing into them. And another 2024 headline, pregnant mom of 4 drives into family while drunk, killing 2, injuring 14 others. European data shows that out of the 1.25 million global driving deaths each year, about 270,000 involve alcohol. That is nearly a quarter.
I ain't gonna lie, it do be a lot of drunk drivers killing innocent people, like, on the road, like, from just drunk driving, man. Like, what's so hard, man? If you know you getting fucked up at the bar, you getting drunk, you out your mind, you sloppy. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to be getting behind no wheel. What you gonna try to drive for, man? Call the Uber, get your ass dropped off at the house. It's that easy. What we doing?
Talk about killer stats. When your brain's reasoning suite takes a sick day, you're bound to make some next-level bad decisions, like popping a pill that turned out to be laced with fentanyl, or getting intimate with someone who leaves you with more than just fond memories. Or worse, spending a weekend in a British city and ending up with broken glass to the face, which happens way too often. Just ask the guy from Leeds who was recently left blind after a total stranger glassed him in the face for, well, no reason at all. But hey, at least in the UK, guns aren't common. In the US though, different story. Guns don't kill people, but drunks with guns sure do. In fact, 40% of all violent crimes in the US involve alcohol. Nearly 37% of sexual assaults, 46% of physical assaults, and between 45 to 50% of homicides happen when someone's been drinking. So yeah, booze and bad decisions go together like tequila and regret. In the UK, alcohol is involved in about 40% of violent crimes, which makes sense when you realize alcohol was 74% more affordable in 2019 than in 1987. For just $6.50, you can grab yourself a 3-liter bottle of 7.5% Frosty Jack cider and be on your way to throwing punches by the end of the night.
We have 96 hours to build a house. Like, let that sink in. This family is suffocated. As much storage as you can do.
How big are we talking?
Big. Like this. Yeah, we're gonna.
Because when your brain is out of commission, the damage is limitless. Add up the diseases, disabilities, mental issues, accidents, and flat-out stupidity, and you might start thinking that alcohol is the most dangerous thing on this planet. Is that an exaggeration? Honestly, we're struggling to come up with something more dangerous that people willingly do on a regular basis. In 2020, almost 1.3 billion people worldwide consumed harmful amounts of alcohol. In places like Europe, Australia, and New Zealand, about 80 to 90% of adults drink, although not all of them go hard. In most countries, over 60% of the population drinks, with men doing most of the heavy lifting, especially in parts of Asia. And the top 20% of drinkers, they are the real MVPs, keeping those national averages high. So yeah, compared to that, weed looks like Mother Teresa. But even Mother Teresa had a dark side, right? Remember that guy who decapitated his wife? The woman he loved? The one he usually got along with just fine? He stabbed her and hacked off her head because, at his trial, it was revealed he'd suffered from cannabis-induced psychosis. Yeah, you heard that right. Voices in his head convinced him that gangs had kidnapped his family, possessed his wife, and were coming for him next. The solution, according to his psychotic breakdown, decapitation. Even after he was arrested, the paranoid psychotic symptoms lasted 11 days. The guy was clearly very ill. Cannabis-induced psychosis doesn't happen to everyone, but for a small number of users, especially those with serious mental illnesses, like a family history of schizophrenia, it is a real risk. In fact, a 2019 study found that 34% of people with cannabis-induced psychosis eventually developed full-blown schizophrenia, even more than those who used hallucinogens like LSD or amphetamines. In 2022, 132 million Americans said they tried weed at least once, and about 17% of people are regular smokers. Statistically speaking, someone's going to lose their mind at some point. Case in point, in 2024, an American woman stabbed her boyfriend 108 times and then had to be tasered to stop stabbing herself. Weed psychosis had her in a full-on meltdown. She was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Then in London in 2022, a man murdered his girlfriend and 3 of her family members in a psychotic rage. Even though he had weed psychosis, he still got 4 life sentences. So let's just say the legal system has some mixed feelings about weed-induced freakouts. These stories are terrifying, but thankfully they're super rare. The incidence rate of cannabis-induced psychosis was 2.8 per 100,000 person years in 2006, but by 2016 it shot up to 6.1 per 100,000. The reason? Today's weed is basically hulked out. It's 5 to 16% stronger than it was 25 years ago. And let's not even get started on how much stronger it is than the mellow Moroccan hash that hippies used to puff on. But even with those numbers, weed is still nowhere near alcohol in terms of danger. Out of those 6 per 100,000 who experience weed psychosis each year, most won't turn violent. Maybe about 10% will. Though a recent study showed that 35 to 39% of people with first episode psychosis might commit some kind of violence. But hey, we're talking minor incidents, not exactly head-chopping levels of crazy. So let's give alcohol the crown for most dangerous drug by a landslide. But don't sleep on weed, it's no joke, especially if you're young. Heavy use has been shown to mess with brain development, and that's a recipe for some serious whatever. Now you need to watch what happens to your body when you take acid, or have a look at what happens to your body when you stop drinking alcohol. November.
Well, let's it on the weed versus the alcohol. Which one was actually worse? Right off the bat, we already know the fucking alcohol gonna be way worse than the weed. Like, I don't know what kind of weed he was talking about in the video. Like, all the weed, like I say, I know it's good weed, you know what I'm saying? They don't have people doing dumb shit, killing each other. I don't know, man. It's crazy. But say, man, y'all let me know, man, which y'all feel is the worst one. Say, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that sub button, hit that like button, join the IPO fam, become a perfect one. But until the next video, to the next one, I'm out.